We promised you that we would get back with you after the Saturday night breaking news. We're learning so much new information. Charlie, who was a guest with us last time, Ed, he said, let's wait 72 hours. We waited a little bit past 72 hours. We still don't have all the answers, but we do have a lot more information about what happened that day.
A lot of it is under conditions of anonymity by certain law enforcement sources. It's just crazy how many hours we are away from the actual event. And there are statements being made by federal law enforcement. There's no way they can be making these statements because they haven't done the work yet.
All right, folks, we got some major breaking news that we want to bring to you. We are learning new information from the Secret Service. It's pretty much hourly now. Thomas Crooks was perceived by the U.S. Secret Service as a person of interest, not yet, quote, a threat, after law enforcement saw him acting suspiciously and determined that he had a Gulf rangefinder.
Most would agree Donald Trump rallies, regardless of your political affiliation, attract a lot of people. They are big productions, stages, lights, and potentially thousands of people. Exact spot of the stage isn't made public. This large open field is a pretty good guess, judging from the generators, and another clue, Robert Bricker knows he's hauling in lights for the rally and parking them here.
For the rally up here.
Yeah, and so they told you they're starting to set up now? Is that what's going down?
Yeah, setting up, I guess, starting today. And
this female agent here is, I believe, the agent that we saw in front of President Trump's motorcade as they were speeding them out. Menu.
Oh, that's her. That's her.
So she was there on Wednesday.
If she's there, then that means that she's part of the advance team.
I don't know how many times they go to the site, if it's a multiple day thing or if it's just a one-day thing, whatever the case may be. The news was there to document it. And I thought that was important to show it. Shooter bought a ladder from Home Depot, confirmed. Bought a ladder from Home Depot. There's a possibility that he could have brought all of his supplies, maybe not the gun, or maybe even the gun as well, and put it in the bushes, because we now know he was walking around that venue unquestioned. There was nobody that questioned him. He was not stopped while walking around the building.
As for the investigation, it is moving rapidly, and law enforcement sources say that they recovered 3 magazines on the shooter's body, along with a cell phone and a transmitter that may have been used to set off some of those suspicious devices found in both the shooter's car and house. And video appears to show that Thomas Matthew Crooks wandering the site of the rally before scaling the roof. And an officer snapped a picture, actually, of him about 26 minutes prior to opening fire.
Look, there he is.
In a video taken by a bystander shortly before the shooting, the gunman, Thomas Matthew Crooks, could be seen crawling on a roof as people were heard pointing him out.
They shouldn't be here. Dangerous people. Criminals. We have criminals.
But those alerts, if heard by any officers, didn't seem to make it up the chain back to the command center. Here's what we know about the security gaps that led to the assassination attempt on 20-year-old gunman climb a rooftop with a rifle and fire shots at former President Donald Trump from less than 150 yards away.
Yeah, I mean, all of that has to get looked at, because there's always all this rumors about the ladder, but it doesn't appear that he used the ladder to get up there. That doesn't mean that he didn't have it in close proximity between the car and the venue.
The Secret Service isn't just responsible for the safety and security of the protectee. They're also there for the safety and the security of the people that are showing up to these events. So this is tragic all around.
There is no central frequency on the radio that every agency was on.
Yeah.
That's another breakdown in the communications. We need standard comms between everyone. And I know that, like, all of our stuff, meaning the Secret Service, my former agency, it's all encrypted. So you've got to make a call there. Do you hand out radios to other members of other agencies? There's a lot that goes into it because, is your radio VHF, UHF, 800 MHz trunking? They're not compatible. So, having another agency's radio either on your person or with another person from that agency is very beneficial. There was a lot of breakdown in communication. There was a lot of delay in communication. I don't know why You see all of these suspicious things backing out the time clock, 10 minutes out, 26 minutes out, an hour out, whatever it may be.
Right.
And yet nothing was done. Just how about just a preliminary FI, field interview? Hey buddy, how you doing? Everything okay? What are you doing over here? You know, can I get your name? We need help with something. You know, you're looking for someone, looking for something. You know, just simple. These are basics that any law enforcement officer learns. You know, coming through an academy and a couple of days out on the street, you're gonna know this.
I just think, Charlie, the biggest question that everyone has is if this guy was identified an hour before Trump even took the stage or an hour before the shooting, then why did they allow him to go out there on the stage if there was a potential threat?
This is the great mystery that shall be unraveled at some point. But the point being, if no one's communicating, I could have all the greatest information in the world to stop this. But if I share it with no one, or I can't share it due to communication errors or communication breakdown, it does me no good to have the information because I can't pass it.
The confirm team mapped out the layout of the shooting, showing the viewpoints of the gunman and Secret Service snipers. Their analysis shows the sight line for the team closest to the shooter may have been obstructed by a tree, hindering their ability to spot him.
So I know that the camera in the front of their house, I was looking at the family's home where he lives, his parents' home. They have a Ring video doorbell. It's not exactly a Ring video doorbell, but it's one of those video doorbells. I'm not sure what it is, but they have that there. So we'll get to see him leaving that day. What do you got up on the screen, Mr. Wallace?
Do you see it?
I do.
So this is a course we teach law enforcement, and we also teach civilian unarmed and armed security guards in event planning. And these are your concentric rings that we use to show who's going to be handling what in what areas and what the roles are and so forth. So you see deter, detect, defend, defeat, and the primary asset is what needs to be protected. And so we have these concentric rings of protection, and we have different things there, and you can see what's in each of the different rings and who's doing what and what their responsibilities are and so forth. It could be old news to Charlie, right? This is old hat.
Well, I mean, we practice the three rings, inner, middle, and outer, and that technically you can push those rings. They expand and contract. The building itself from which he took the shots was considered the outer ring, and normally that's a majority of non-Secret Service personnel. Okay, I'm not trying to place blame with anyone in particular. I'm just saying that's how the rings.
100% correct.
They will have someone there, right? There will be a limited amount of Secret Service personnel on the outer ring, just for communication and coordination.
Attempting to move in the direction of the shooter are seen in one video. They're blocked by a perimeter security fence. They end up using a police cruiser to ram the fence to create an opening. The Army veteran who shot this video tells Fox News Digital he was surprised the rally security plan did not have a patrolled access point in this section of fence to handle this type of emergency. Just seconds after the gunman opened fire, a Secret Service counter sniper fired back and struck him. A federal law enforcement source tells Fox News local officers were inside that same building the shooter was on top of, but local media cite other sources who claim the cops were actually in a nearby building instead. WPXI TV has obtained a photo from the rooftop where the shooter was killed, showing his cell phone and a transmitter resembling a TV remote. Investigators believe the device to be some sort of detonator and say they found rudimentary explosive devices in the gunman's car parked nearby.
Officer who was hoisted up onto that building and startled the gunman. I truly believe, and this is my opinion and my opinion only, that had he not startled, he may have had all of this time to take his time and take the right shot. I believe that because that happened and the gunshots happened right after that, he had to rush his shots, and maybe it helped to save former President Donald Trump. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. He didn't expect the uniformed police officer to pop up behind him like that. But there was also talk that the counter snipers had him in their sights well before he fired shots, well before a uniformed police officer attempted to get on the roof. And so we got to nail down this timeline to see who saw what, who reported what, and why didn't they take action. before this
come out in the news that on Monday they said they hadn't cracked his phone, meaning gotten into the phone and analyzed the data, and that he acted alone. And all I can think to myself is, you're way out over your skis. You're like, you don't make statements like this. This is not something you comment on, especially so early into an investigation. I mean, how do you know? What evidence do you have that he's not involved with someone else or multiple people? I mean, if whoever said that, I think maybe their supervisor should have taken them and said, you'll never speak to the press again. Thank you for your service, and you are no longer employed.
Why didn't they take action before this?
The answer is, I don't know, but I'll find out. Right. Or the investigation hasn't shown that yet. We do not know. It may in the future.
Exactly. How do you go from saying we haven't gotten into his phone yet, but he wasn't associated with any known terrorist group?
Well, look, the thing of it is, overall responsibility for putting the security plan together is the Secret Service's. It's their responsibility. In that respect, you also have to be able to trust the so-called partner law enforcement agencies that you work with, that if they're delegated to do certain things, they will do them, right? We tell them, if you're going to man this post, that means man this post. You don't abandon it. You don't leave it. There are so many things they could have done. And looking at that rooftop, is there a slope to it? Yes. But it's not an A-frame, okay? It's not like an A-frame ski chalet. If he was able to lay up there and get a shot off, how come you didn't have people on there in a direct line of sight? They could have put a 10 by 10 canopy up there and weighted it down with 5-gallon buckets filled with whatever material you wanted to put in it to give them shade if they really needed shade. You know, just like you'd see at a tailgate at a baseball game or a football game. You know, if it was that bad and hot, they could have done 30-minute pushes, meaning 30-minute change the manpower out. One guy up, one guy comes down. One guy goes back up, one guy comes back down. You know, lots of sunscreen and a boonie hat. You're good. I'm not trying to place the blame on anyone in particular, but if there was an agency outside the Secret Service that was a partner and they were supposed to cover that point of view, that field of fire, and they didn't, and they thought they could hold it from another building or inside, well, they're wrong. If I'm tasked as just a simple post stander, my job is to ensure that no one comes in or out of a certain doorway. Well, that doesn't mean I'm standing down the hallway 50 yards away in the hopes that I can see someone and then stop them before they open a door or break into a door and get in there.
This guy right here lowers this barrel. It's more upward, and he has to make that adjustment. As you can see here, it's up, and he adjusts it down. This is probably not a good example, but if you look at some of this footage, he makes an adjustment. He looks up, and then he cocks the back end of this up and aims that barrel down.
Take into consideration the whole lay of the land. You just don't secure right what's around him. You know, you've got to consider the high ground. You've got to consider what buildings are there, what's in range. Yeah. I'm not understanding how on an advance you don't address these.
So I was just taking in the moment. So this was before the shooting, obviously.
That was him looking at that building and sizing it up here. He's looking at the actual building that he perched himself on to take shots at President Trump.
The man who captured it all, not wanting to show his face on camera. He says he was trying to capture the crowd and take it all in, but if you take a closer look, you'll notice someone in the background. The timestamp is 5:06, and the video appears to show 20-year-old Thomas Crooks lurking near a building just past the secure parameters of the event itself. As the video pans to the crowd, you'll notice law enforcement vehicles stationed in the area as well. As the camera moves back towards the building, Crooks appears to be seen again. Blink and you may miss it, but it likely shows Crooks was in the area for more than an hour. Law enforcement sources say Crooks was able to access the roof by climbing over an air conditioning unit adjacent to the building. Pittsburgh's Action News 4 has learned from multiple sources that Thomas Crooks was spotted at the rally, photographed as suspicious, and officers were actively looking for him when he made his way onto the roof and fired at former President Donald Trump.
So, interesting details there, Charlie. Is it common to have surveillance drones or any type of aerial assets covering this type of event?
Well, they can have them. Was it likely that they were in use that day? No. You got to realize this is a former detail. Their assets are much lower than what we would get for a president's detail. So you're not going to have all of the things in place you normally would on a president's detail. Additionally, he was still listed as a former. He was not listed as yet the Republican nominee. That would give him what's called a CNOS, Candidate Nominee Operations Section package, and an upgrade on manpower and coverage and other items that are used in a protective envelope. So it wasn't a full package that he could have had.
Is it fair to say that somebody dropped the ball as it pertains to that building? I mean, I don't care where it was or, you know, how far out it was. That building had a direct line of sight to the front stage.
Yeah, should have been covered. Should have been covered. There should have been personnel on the roof. There is no way that rooftop is insurmountable to put people on. I see nothing in any of the video of it. I see nothing in any of the still pictures of it. And if it was good enough for the shooter, then why wasn't it good enough for law enforcement? He was able to access a roof area, and his parents called him in missing. One of the things you got to remember is where he lived, the event took place, was a good ways apart, about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes drive. And if his parents called into police, the dispatch or 911 center where he lived in Bethel probably doesn't communicate directly. They'd have to go out of their normal path of communications to speak with someone up in Butler, PA, to notify them, hey, we're looking for this kid, and supposedly he took the father's gun, and he's been among the missing since this morning. These are all things that, you know, they'll figure it out. They'll get it done. But he didn't live in the same area that the incident happens.
Hey, Charlie.
Yes.
Let's. Can we put some kind of controversy here to bed? The director of the Secret Service was correct me if I'm wrong, please. She was a 27-year member of the Secret Service. She was on Vice President Biden's detail during the Obama administration, and then she left Secret Service to go to Pepsi for a short time, and then was picked by Biden to be the director. Is that not accurate?
Yeah. She had been in Atlanta as well too, as a special agent in charge, the field office there. So she was well seasoned. Obviously, if you're in a detail, you know, majority of protectees do know who you are when you're a permanent assigned to a protective detail.
Well, you think that was a favored assignment that she got that position?
Don't know.
This is where former President Donald Trump, his whole stage was set up here. The shooter was here. Our sniper team 1 and 2 was here on this building and this building, and I'm going to go in closer just for a minute. It's alleged that sniper team 3 was here at this location and would have a direct line of access, and then the shot was, I think, 900 feet total, which is not off base for a sniper to take a shot from here. So team 3 allegedly was set up here, not on this building, right here. There's a huge water tower, and it has a ladder up that goes up over here. So the shooter was right here. This water tower would give a direct line of sight, not just to this building where the shooter was, but right here where the stage was set up, right here. Huge, high water tower would have had clear and an unobstructed view of all of these buildings, the AGR complex. They could have covered all of this whole side, plus everything back here as well, from that water tower. So my question to you, Charlie, is when a site survey was done, would that water tower get looked at and say, hey, maybe that's a good spot to put a sniper on it?
Should be looked at, but those decisions are left to the counter snipers. Right, they're the experts in that field. They're going to digress to their decision. Just because you're an agent doesn't mean you're a counter sniper. They're going to know their field of visions, their line of fires. They're the ones who have to defeat any threats. So they're going to take into account how that factors into the entire scenario of setting up. That's why I'm saying, when did they finalize the plan of this is how The stage will be set up. This is where the bleachers will be. This is the way the walkway will be. All of these things factor in. And for them to do, if they go out and do a counter sniper survey, they're also going to have to consider, did they, and I don't know whether they did or they didn't, did they assign that building to a partner law enforcement agency to hold and secure? And if they did, I'm not saying they did, but if they did, a lot of that will be on that agency which was charged with securing the building. If it was our responsibility, meaning the Secret Service's responsibility, then we better own up to it real quick. If it wasn't, and they delegated it to a partner law enforcement agency, that partner law enforcement agency better own up to it real quick. I mean, you've got to have accountability. I'm sorry. This is not, I'm in the parking lot and, hey, I bumped your bumper and I scratched your paint. You want to, can I give you $100 to fix it, or, not go through the insurance to raise my rates? This is serious. Someone is dead. 2 are still in the hospital, and a former president has been shot.
He walked that whole area just before the president took the stage.
It's just ridiculous to have this building unprotected. And Ed and Charlie, I mean, you can let me know if I'm wrong, but if you had personnel outside on the perimeter standing security in this area where he got in, 1 or 2 cops here, 1 or 2, 3 cops here, just if this whole building was surrounded by men and women on the ground, he wouldn't have been able to get on there, or there would have been a gunfight between him and them. So I don't think that that's really arguable. If they had personnel down there, he would have been had.
Well, he would have been confronted when he was doing his recon just before the president took the stage. He was walking around, people saw him. He got caught on that videotape looking over there, and there were police vehicles, but again, there were no personnel. Nobody stopped him. Nobody challenged him. Hey, what are you doing here? Do you work here? Are you supposed to be on this property? Nothing.
Well, I think you've got a couple of different things going on. You've got the DHS Inspector General, who just announced that he's going to open up an investigation here. His office will open that investigation. You've heard President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas talk about an independent review, so they're going to have to square those 2 different investigations up.
You have to have accountability. I mean, we have to look at what happened. I mean, we almost had a former president assassinated live on television. Right? I mean, that's domestic terrorism. That's an attack on this country. And the idea that no one is accountable, that's what people kind of hate sometimes with the federal government. This was not a mistake. This was a catastrophic failure. American people deserve to hear what we know at the moment and what the failures are at the moment. Look, I'm a mile away from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, where I graduated from. And when we discovered the failures after that shooting, the sheriff was removed from office. And so there has to be accountability when you have these catastrophic security failures.
So what? But the point is, this is on the advance team. They go out and they're expected to do a certain job, and then the field office is going to review it, the supervisory chain. And there's going to have to be an accounting for this.
Because look, the buck stops with her. I think she was quoted as saying that recently. I'm not sure how she survives this. If your primary, particularly in the protection division of the service, is to protect your principal, and someone shoots the president, you have failed in your mission.
This was the perfect storm of failures.
Mm-hmm.
Once you allow something like this to dictate your behavior, they won.
That's right.
They win.
Because the former students that were giving these interviews, he was an outcast, making these comments, the shooter was an outcast and so forth, and he was bullied. And I'm like, well, what did you do to stop him from being an outcast and being bullied? Or were you part of that problem? And that's how you know this. And his parents were apparently social workers and therapists.
Look, hey folks, we still live in the greatest country on the face of the planet in the history of mankind. Don't forget that. We're all Americans. Okay, let's do this right and do it the civil way, polite and peaceful. That's all I ask. No more violence. It doesn't do anything, and it doesn't solve anything, and it doesn't get your agenda accomplished.